Hello, hello, and welcome to Saturday Sound Bites. I'm your host, Veronica Sofer. Thrilled to be here with you again on Saturday Sound Bites because we talk about all things visibility strategy, advertising, marketing, communication, networking, mindset, all those things you need to do to have a successful business. And I've got a great guest for you today. You're going to absolutely love this author that I'm going to introduce you to. So let's take care of some housekeeping. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of Saturday Sound Bites. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, drop us some comments and my guest and I will be sure to circle back and connect with you. So we will go ahead and get this episode started. Let me introduce to you the amazing Sheleah Reed. Hello, hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Saturday. Listen, so many things have happened and it's still early.
That's right. That's exactly right. And we appreciate everybody tuning into us live. So Sheleah, I first of all, let me just say I love your book and I was so excited at the opportunity to have you on as a guest. I'm going to go ahead and make sure all of our viewers see it. It's Do You? The Audacity to Live a Bold and Authentic Life. Sheleah, let's talk about this, girl.
Yeah, I believe it. You know, my shirt here says the rules are fake.
Yep. I got my shirt.
Your shirt says do you. And ultimately, my reminder for everyone is you have everything you need inside of you to live a successful life. You don't have to someone else wants you to be. You don't have to be like someone else. You really just need to simply do you. I mean, it's simple. Do you.
That's right. I love it. And, when I got a copy of the book, I had 2 copies and I had them on the table. And one of my daughters goes, "Is this like a Nike thing?" And I was like, "No, but it's a simple reminder that that's what it's about, right? You don't need a lot of words to remind us that that's what it's about." And so literally now I've got 2 teenage girls walking around the house going, "Do you, boo? Do you, boo?" And I'm like, hey, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So what's funny is that when I was working on the book, I kept thinking about what it would be called. I thought about, a bold and authentic life. I thought about shine. I mean, I'm rich. There's some chapter names that I thought about. But at the end of the day, I just put do you at the top, like as a placeholder, and it stuck. And at the end of the day, every chapter in the book is designed to tell you a story about how you simply do you, right? How you set the rules, set the context. Ultimately, you set the strategy and the goal of what's going to happen. You're in control, and you really have all the tools. So, do you works? I mean, do you boo works too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
the sofa girls like that.
Yeah, that's do you.
All right. So Sheleah, let's talk a little bit about putting the book together. You talked about the different title names that you had. How does an author actually sit down and organize that? Because I think a lot of women, especially those listening to the podcast, might have a great book idea in their mind, but they're not quite sure how to get it out into the world.
Yeah, so I'm looking for the example too of how you sit down, write it, and produce it. In my mind, I thought that, I'm going to write a book. According to my young mother, I've been planning to write a book for the last 40 years of my life. Okay. I don't know that to be true, but that's what he says. And so I think I envision going to a cabin, being surrounded by the mountains and not being interrupted and just typing away. That's not how it happened. In fact, I really don't know when I found the time to write a book. I mean, I have a busy job. I have 2 children under 3.
Yeah.
And, I have all of these other social obligations. But what I found is that I do take notes in my phone. And I take notes everywhere I go. I take church notes. I take notes when I hear a speaker. I take notes in a meeting. And in my notes section, there's simply just thoughts. And then I'll add context. At some point, I started journaling in my phone because it was easier than trying to write in a journal. Mm-hmm. And I realized that it's faster for me to get it out. And so what I found is that doing it on my phone was the easiest way. And so I started just putting thoughts together. And it started because, Veronica, I have these one-liners similar to Do You. I have several one-liners. Many of them haven't even made this book, but, things like do you, or I'll say I'm rich, or I'll say stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And people love them and they gravitate towards them, or they'll remind me too. They'll say, oh yeah, stay ready. But there are other people who really don't know what it means or with that. And so what I found is that I started taking notes around those same themes. And those themes then became stories. And
Mhm.
everyone loves a good story. Everyone loves, oh, tell me what happened. Did where's the drama in the story? And then at the end, the conclusion. And I realized I'm a storyteller,
Yes.
and people like to hear my stories. And I thought we'll put them together and add that with the one-liners, and here you go. So I would tell, anyone who's thinking about writing a book, just start somewhere. Don't
Yes.
think that you have to go to this right. Don't think you have to, write it on paper. Do what's best for you. And for me, that was writing in my notes. Now I know there are other authors who voiced messaged,
Oh, wow.
like when
Yeah, yeah.
they voiced their thoughts, and then later came back and cleaned them up. That works too. I
Yeah,
think
that's a great idea.
you just have to get it out. And
Mhm.
I'm not a perfectionist at all. I don't even pretend I'm a get it done person. And what I realized is that I stop myself because I don't have a full plan. But
Mhm.
I said, okay, here, I want to do a book. Let me just get it out. And so I just threw it on in the notes section, and I later on dealt with the editing and the format.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love that commitment to just getting it out there. And that's actually part of the, be bold part of the book is really taking action because we have these great ideas. And I
Mhm.
read that consistently. You might get an inspiration from somewhere, but it's that last step of taking action,
Mhm.
which oftentimes is what hurts us the most, I think, in life because we overthink it, overanalyze it. And I love where you just, and you guide people to just don't think about that, like let that part go. And you
Mhm.
just said it right now too, you're not a perfectionist, you're just a doer. The
Mhm.
doing part is where the power lies.
It's true. Now, don't get me wrong. I like things to be done a certain way. I'm very particular. But what I realize is like we want it perfect. We want everything planned out. We want to, already come with a plan to address the haters and the naysayers. We all want to make sure we figure out how we're going to make all the money. And because we get caught up in those things, we never get it done. I read a meme the other day that said, sis, don't let it die. Don't let this great idea die in your notes on your phone. And I thought, well, I mean, many of us, whether
Right.
it's notes or the notes that we write on the back of a napkin, or when we're sitting in the meeting doodling, that those are great ideas, but we let them die because we can't see them all the way to the end. And I think that that's one of the things that for me is you really don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So do it now.
Yes.
The plan fall apart. And one of the things I realized is people, when I'm reading a book, Veronica, no matter whose it is, whether it's Jill Siler's, whether it's Brene Brown's, whether it is Terry McMillan's book, right? I am circling, I'm highlighting, I'm going back to my notes in my phone.
Girl, yep, I got my
I'm taking pictures. I have screenshots of pages, and then I'm highlighting on the pages. So I realized people need to be one with the book. And
mm,
just write a book that was thick and had, all of these words without there being a place for people to have an opportunity to reflect and make it their own.
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think I'm a teacher by nature. I don't know where that came from. I don't know why, but I'm a teacher and a thought partner for people. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized I need people to be able to digest this in a way that makes it simple for them, and something that makes it meaningful for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see in the book, there are places where you're
Yes.
supposed to, and I ask you hard questions, or I say, oh, well, what about this?
Yeah, let's think about that.
Yeah. Tell me, what do you think about this? And what about your life?
Mm-hmm.
Because my life is mine, but how does
Mm-hmm.
this apply to you? What can
Mm-hmm.
you do? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the power, right? When we intentionally pause, when you've consumed something that's like aha, and you've got this great realization or maybe even a validation of where you're at in your life, and then you have a moment to write it down because the author has strategically designed time for
Hmm.
reflection. I mean, think about it. That's what happens in the classroom. Teachers design time for reflection, but are we designing time when we're reading as adults? In our own professional learning and growth, are we designing time for reflection? So I love how you did that in the book. I think that's really, really powerful.
Thank you. I blame my book club. I have a book club. We book club. Officially, we're calling ourselves a book club over the last 5 years, but there's been a group of women who've gotten together and talked about the books. and socialize them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we don't even get to the book because we end up talking about one little character, one thing that happened, and then we end up boom moving and talking about our husbands, or we're talking about we're talking about anything. Sometimes we end up talking about thrifting and who knows. But what I realize is people need to talk about what happened. And
Yes.
I said I was a storyteller, but I'm gonna call myself a coach, where I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Let's dialogue about. Maybe I'm feeling like a little Ayanla Van Zantish, where she talks and gives you opportunities to talk back. I'm not positive, but what I know is that I can't just read something and move on.
Yeah.
The real why many shows are popular is because they have a social side.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about, I watched Scandal. Oh, Veronica, I was a Scandal fan. I was a white coat gladiator, and I was lucky enough to work with these young women, and we would come back on Fridays because it showed on Thursdays, and we would just be like, "Did you see this? And did you see that?" And then it moved to we were texting about it, and everybody, had their own life at home, and then you text about it at the same time. But then what I found is I became a Facebook group member for like the gladiators. Oh gosh, it changed the way I watched the show because everybody's opinion was really changing what I was looking at or what I was seeing. And I realized, that's where it's at. So I'm in a Scandal group, but it's no longer showing. Big Brother, huge Big Brother fan. Every time there's a new season, I'm waiting on the context of me getting that. Married at First Sight, I followed that group. There's so many groups that I follow that in there we're having socialization about the storyline, and I think that's the same way I was hoping people would consume the book, where there was a storyline and then they could reflect on it. And it's not a book you read at one sitting. I know many people have they've just read through it, but the idea is you put it on the shelf and you come back and you read it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree, and that's how I prefer to read books, just to consume, because I'm all about the reflection. I'm at an age in my life where I now value reflection, right? That quiet time, that downtime, because sometimes when the noise settles, that's when those thoughts come back to you, and for me, that's powerful. So I absolutely love it. And so, Sheleah, you mentioned being a coach. You are also a coach, other than you have a very important 9-to-5 job. You're raising 2 young men who are just the sweetest and cutest little babies you've ever seen. Wife, daughter, and a coach. Tell me about your coaching business and what people can expect when they're working with you.
So I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know it was called coaching. I was the one that, when I get in the car, somebody has texted me and said, "Hey, call me. I want to run an idea by you."
Mm-hmm.
And then, or, somebody said, "Do you have a second?" And you just end up brainstorming and thought partnering or giving feedback on ideas. And one day somebody said, people, I would pay $1,000 to have you as my coach just so I could call you. And I said, "Oh, wait a minute." Ultimately, I consider myself an identity coach, right? Because that sticks to the lines of being you. Not an executive coach, not a life coach, but a coach that reminds you that you have it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you put your best foot forward in everything you do to meet your goals? And I think a lot of people have come to me and said, "Well, I'm really looking about personal branding, or I want to promote my business." And then once we end up talking, Veronica, their self have, or how they feel about themselves, or how they think others perceive them, has gotten in the way of them even being successful in their business. And so we just really talk through, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that? What led you to that? And we move those barriers out of the way so that they can put their best self forward, so that they can understand what their strengths are. One of the things my parents are divorced. They've been divorced since I was 15 years old, and I'm 40 something, right? I actually remember both parts of my life, when my parents were married and when they weren't. And that's my story. That's who I am. I can't run from it. I can't hide from it. In fact, it's the spice of life. It's kind of a funny thing because my parents spend a lot of time together. We have Christmas together. Just the other day, my father called my mother while I was in the same room. And I'm like, what? I can't tell people that. I can't help them to understand what that looks like or feels like. Mind you, my father's been married almost 25 years, and my mom has also been married. I think though what people need to understand is that's my life, and
Yeah.
so and fight against it rather than become embarrassed by it or frustrated. I've learned to embrace it and just part of my story.
Yeah.
Who I am, and the things that came along with that have ultimately made me a better wife, a better friend, because I'm gonna call them scars, but they're these stories. And while that's my story, someone may have lived with someone who had a drinking problem, or there was someone who dealt with their weight, right? I'm thinking as I'm talking to you about my hair and how it's probably growing and getting big, right? So these are some of the things that I'm dealing with. But as a coach, I remind people some of those things are just human.
Yeah.
You can't control them.
Yeah.
So how do you live in that? How do you just let that become part of the story?
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's a really great distinction between an identity coach and an executive coach who might focus on, your business or another part of it. But at its core, you can't sell yourself or your brand until you are in touch with who you are and comfortable with it. So I think the work that you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. I do hope that, it's changing lives. I've seen the real difference in some people where they, just one session and they're like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. Now they're walking a little prouder with their head held higher. And they're like, I just didn't even think about it like that. And it's not, it's like, I'm really like a version of you. I'm holding up a mirror.
Yeah.
Asking you the hard questions.
That's what a good coach does. And folks, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I have put Sheleah's website up there. You can find out all about Do You. You can order your copy there. You can also connect with her on coaching. Sheleah, how can people connect with you? What's your preferred way other than your website?
Yeah, so if you are looking to learn about, as you mentioned, coaching, or you heard me talk, you want me to talk to your book club or even your organization, Sheleah.com has all the details. There's examples of conversations I've had about being authentic and being bold right there on the website. In addition, if you think you want to buy a book and it's your preferred method, we're also on Amazon. Just put in Do You Sheleah and it pops up and you can purchase it there. Either way is an option. Also on Sheleah.com, we have merch. Veronica showed you her shirt that says Do You, which is a reminder to the world that you're walking around doing you. My favorite shirt is The Rules Are Fake because simply they are fake. They're not real. And so that shirt's there, and there's a few other surprises that'll be there shortly. We have everything you need, whether it's a journal, a book, or just an opportunity to go back and forth. I'm on all social media at only the #1 and Sheleah.
That's right. I love it. All right, Sheleah, it has been a pleasure having you on. Folks, you have got to connect with her. I've always told her when I grow up, I want to be Sheleah because her insight and her passion and her power are contagious. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Veronica.
All right, guys, that wraps up this episode of Saturday Soundbites. As always, you can find me at veronicavisofer.com. Please connect with Sheleah. All of her contact information and social will be in the show notes. You will not regret it. She is an inspiration, and everyone needs to read her book. So with that, I will wrap up this episode by sending you lots of positive